Good morning, everybody. We're here to talk to you about the future of NFTs on L2. We're going to go down the line and introduce ourselves very quickly. Then we'll talk about each of our own views on this question and who we are and what we do. So I'm Ed Felten. I am co-founder and chief scientist at Off-Chain Labs. We make Arbitrum.
Excellent. My name is Kevin Leffew. I'm the chief product officer at Europa Labs. We build Web3 native applications and infrastructures for brands that are looking to get into the NFT space.
Hello, I'm Salah Zalatimo. I'm the CEO of Voice. We're an NFT marketplace focused on emerging digital artists.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Walid. I am a blockchain engineering lead at Parallel Finance. We're one of the leading DeFi platform on Polkadot ecosystem, and we recently got into the Ethereum ecosystem, and we launched an Omni protocol, which enables NFT financialization.
GM, I'm Steven Goldfeder, co-founder and CEO of Off-Chain Labs. We make Arbitrum.
All right, so let's talk about what each of us do in a little bit more detail, where we think the where we think the NFT world is going on L2. And I'll go first. At Arbitrum, we are all about driving the value proposition of driving down cost, driving up scale, while retaining the security of Ethereum. We're the leading layer 2 system on Ethereum. And I think the basic reason why we're seeing more and more NFT activity moving into the L2 space is fundamentally around user experience. And that includes the visible aspects of user experience, like cost. People don't want to pay a lot for their transactions. It also includes the less visible but super important aspect of user experience, namely security. And that is that you can know that your NFT will still be there and it will still behave and do the things that it's supposed to do in the future. Security is that invisible property that is really important to have. And so we're all about, I'm one of the technical leads in the company, and we're all about driving down cost. We're all about maintaining the security of Ethereum and making sure that that's all available to people. And I think you're going to see more and more NFT activity continue to move on to layer 2 and to use the different services that all of our companies are using because of that basic value proposition.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I would agree with everything that Ed said there. I think the key issue with NFT user experience today is that gas fee problem. And so I think what we're seeing is the evolution of more of a monolithic blockchain architecture to a modular blockchain architecture, which is occurring kind of in tandem with the merge on Ethereum. One area that we'll get into is the proposed EIP 4844, which introduces a new transaction type called a blob that facilitates rollups in a more native way rather than plugging into call data. It has a specific data slot for the KSV hash of the polynomial that kind of facilitates kind of the native integration between L2s and Ethereum. We can go into kind of the differences between rollup constructions, how they affect users, but I think what's most interesting is all of our combined experiences around building solutions for customers and the problems that we solve.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so our platform, as I mentioned, is focused on digital art, and we work primarily with digital artists and art collectors. And what they want more than anything is something that is easy, that is cheap, and that is sustainable, both technically and for the environment. And we just can't do that on layer 1s today. There are some layer 1s that are more efficient that can afford that kind of flexibility and user experience, but in general, we believe that the future is one where we don't talk about layers and we just have an easy thing that is safe and dependable and people feel confident in it. And that will happen by sufficiently abstracting our blockchain technology and having multiple layer 2s interacting with multiple layer 1s. And if we can get to that future, I think then we can really feel like that this becomes a mass market product and an ecosystem, and then we're truly all going to make it.
Awesome, I agree with everything the gentlemen have said. Actually, I want to just give some examples. Like right now with the NFT world, like I still remember the day when I minted an NFT and it costed more than 2 Ethereums. just because everyone wanted to mint that. And minting is one of the simplest things you can do from a computational perspective. It's really simple. Like, it doesn't have to cost that much. At Parallel, we're building Omni Protocol, and we want to enable so many features that will allow people to use their NFTs as collateral, to borrow money, to do some leverage trading. We want to do rentals. Money markets have a lot of computation. In order to compute what a person has and the value that they have, it takes a lot of computation. To give you an example, Aave right now, they only support 128 assets to be borrowed and 128 assets to be supplied, like maximum per user. If you want to extend that to NFTs, that wouldn't work really, because we definitely have more than 128 collections. And in order to support more, we need a cheaper computation. We need to offload this computation to another layer. Layer 2s are amazing for that. They definitely will help us scale and actually achieve what we can achieve with centralized computation like AWS and and Google Cloud and all of that. But yeah, we cannot do that even if the layer 1 is really efficient. We have some layer 1s right now that are really fast. If you want to expand to 1 billion people, you cannot do it with one blockchain. You will need multiple, you will need omni-chain. That's the future we're heading towards.
Hey, couldn't agree more with all that. And I guess to give you some insight into how we think about things at Arbitrum, our goal is really to get out of the way, like Salah said. You shouldn't be thinking about us, but to make sure that the things that you want to think about and know are there are really taken care of and important. So there are many, many different platforms that can offer you low fees. The differentiator of Arbitrum and layer 2s is the security, because the thing about security is until it's broken, it's all fine, right? So if a platform works and you say, well, it's not broken, so it must be fine, and you don't realize there's an issue, and then maybe something never happens, but then a year or 2 years or 3 years down the line, you wake up one morning and oops, your NFTs are gone. It turns out security might have been a thing you should have invested in. And our goal at Arbitrum is to give you that security and those low fees together. So we're an Ethereum layer 2, the leading Ethereum layer 2 today, and we give you both the low cost, so you can mint, as you said, it's not a complex operation, it shouldn't break the bank, and you should be able to have many, many NFT collections, and the boundary for entry for a new artist shouldn't be very high and shouldn't be prohibitive. So that's one thing we provide, but also providing that security. And the other key thing that we provide in Arbitrum is the ecosystem, because you want to be where the TVL is, you want to be where the liquidity is, you want to be where the other collections are. We're fortunate to have all of the large DeFi protocols co-resident with some major NFT projects. I don't know if there are any Treasure DAO or Small Brains fans here, but one of Arbitrum's premier collections. We have hundreds of collections today, and really fostering an ecosystem which low cost and user experience are key, but you have the comfort that in doing so, you're not compromising your security. And I wish all the other platforms very, very well, and hope that they all continue to operate without any security incidents. But for us, building that into the core of the product is key, because it's a thing that users might not realize until they do, and then they'll wish they had. So security and low costs and a blossoming ecosystem are really our strong points.
So let's talk about where this is going to go. So, there's a lot of excitement up here, I think all of us, about what's happening on layer 2, about the ecosystem that's emerged so far. But maybe slightly unfairly to my co-panelists. Let's talk about where we think this will be in a few years. What do you think the ecosystem looks like maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the line? And I'll go first. I think we're going to continue to see migration onto layer 2s. I think we're going to see the technology become even more mature than it is. Because we're driving two things at the same time, I think, collectively in our communities, right? First, we're driving the fundamentals, low cost, high security, reliability, that things are there when you need them, that the cost is low, the friction is low, and the user experience is really smooth. But we're also then enabling people to build on top more different kinds of services. If you run down the line here and ask what each of us do and how they fit together, we're not so much competing with each other as I think each of us are building an important part of an ecosystem that is needed to serve creators and to serve users and owners of NFTs. So I see a world where cost is driven down substantially, where there's less friction, where the experience is much more natural, but especially I see a world where folks who are working at the creative layer are able to do so much more. There's so much more innovation and so much more going on at that space, because we're all about building the foundations so that folks at the creative layer can just do what they want to do, and users can experience that in the cleanest and most efficient, most secure, and lowest cost way.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I think kind of looking back to what drives the core value proposition of blockchains, it's the immutability of smart contracts, the cryptographic-based identity mechanism, and the decentralized guarantees of distributed compute architecture that make blockchain a key solution for artists who are looking to create direct and perpetual monetization strategies. Layer 2, I think, will ultimately be the scaling solution for Ethereum. I think that we've seen some of the downfalls of other bridging architectures, right, which create these joints between networks that can sometimes act as honeypots and create risk. L2s share the same security model as the underlying consensus. So in the case of Ethereum, the layer 2, the rollup, is rooted in the consensus model of Ethereum through the construction of the rollup. Which is based, in the call data, or in the future the blob transaction slot, and that enables a more secure, scalable architecture without these joints, these honeypots, these security risks that some kind of bridging architectures can introduce. And so what this does enable is it enables massive amounts of transactional throughput at scale with the same immutability guarantees as core layer 1 solutions. And so I think, from that perspective, L2 is really the enabling technology that brings blockchain global, brings it to the masses. It enables us to do much more transactional intensive applications. I think one good example is a solution that we built at Europa Labs. Again, we build custom solutions for brands, for creators, for companies. We led the development of the utility for 11, which is a nightclub in Miami. The NFT grants you access to skip the line, kind of like a TSA pre-check. There's an extra line for Captain Club holders. If they have the NFT, they can skip the line. We built a solution where if you have the NFT, you send a signed message, generates a QR code. The QR code goes directly into your Apple Wallet or Google Wallet, and that's all mobile native and kind of optimized for the UX that consumers know and are looking for today. With an L2 system, it makes transactions much more efficient, and so you can start to do much more complicated architectures that involve more code, more weight to the smart contracts, and can create more complex applications without increasing the cost of the gas component exponentially. And so we're all, I think, really excited about L2s. I think you can even see with the intention of the Ethereum Foundation, a lot of kind of the post-merge proposals for how Ethereum is going to evolve. We're walking quickly into an L2 future, and the most exciting part is the problems that it solves for users, making blockchains more consumable, bringing cryptographic identity to the masses, and ultimately facilitating the user experience that should bring us to the next level as an ecosystem.
I agree with my fellow panelists have said so far. I think another piece of this that we think quite a bit about is just the noise level at the layer 1. The layer 1s were built with certain use cases in mind. Obviously nobody can predict all possible use cases, and so it's not shocking that purpose-specific layer 2s would emerge that would be better optimized and purpose-built for specific use cases, and digital art platform being one of them. That's what we did. And when you really think about what's going on at the layer 1, you also have, in addition to it being generally more complexity and more rigidity, so there's less flexibility in terms of how you can use it and interact with it, you also have the challenge of investment and investors and speculators that impact the cost of using that layer 1 independent of the actual usage, right? So, as Ethereum prices go up and there's demand on just trading, from an investment standpoint, it makes actually using it much more expensive. And so we're starting to develop these weird habits like waiting to buy something till midnight so that the gas fees will be down because fewer people are awake trading, which is like upside down. And we're slowly beginning to accept it as normal. And it's not normal. And it will never be adopted by the mass market that way. So we have to go into layer 2, and we have to go into it with the mindset of creating something that is really specific to what we're using it for, that doesn't get disturbed or disrupted by all the outside noise that kind of lives around in the layer 1s today. And so, we are in a pretty tough time right now from a crypto price standpoint. I'm sure you've heard many times already in this conference how it's actually a good thing that we're clearing some stuff out. But it's tough, and being part of that really impacts our day-to-day business. We have artists trying to mint and sell NFTs on multiple chains, in Ethereum and others as well, and collectors who are now not sure whether they should or shouldn't because the prices are in different cryptos, and there's kind of two elements of risk going on instead of keeping it just as simple as buying something in the physical world. So I think the future is going to be a lot of purpose-specific layer 2s that are interacting with different layer 1s for again, very specific reasons.
Yeah. Again, I think everyone here on this panel agree with each other. Yeah, like absolutely. I think ticketing is one of the really good examples of like that. I don't want to mint a $10 ticket and pay $100 to mint. Like, that does not make any sense. Also, I think recently there has been rise in DAOs, and we are seeing so many new DAOs coming every day, and these DAOs are aiming to grow and to become really large entities that have maybe thousands of contributors. Now, these contributors usually are their membership. They are represented by maybe NFTs, right? And so these contributors will want to contribute to these DAOs. They want to get paid maybe for their contribution. Paying thousands of people on layer 1 does not work, right? Like you will need to offload that somewhere. So as long as we increase the security of layer 2 and we can actually now do all the computation, offload all that computation, help people get paid with almost like no cost, that's where we should be heading, right? But one of the challenges that I see right now, and I think, just to answer the question, which is where we're heading in the next 4 years, we need to focus on bridging. I think bridging has been one of the biggest challenges for layer 2. We need to increase the security for bridging. We don't have robust bridging solutions right now. That every day we see that there has been an exploit in bridging, but we're doing our best, I think, so far, and we definitely need to increase that security of layer 2 so that people will feel safe to move their assets. And from like DeFi perspective, again, people who are in some countries where their currencies are not as valued as the dollar, they don't want to pay these absurd amounts like for gas to do simple stuff like yield farming or deposit their money into decentralized solutions and use that instead of their day-to-day banking, which is provided to them for free. For that, we need layer 2s, and we might even need layer 3s. And I think because data availability is very important, data layers, improving data layers. Right now, all the NFTs store their data on off-chain solutions like IPFS. And although IPFS is amazing, but there's a gap connecting this data layer with the blockchain and actually to move this data to smart contracts and do some computation on them. And so this is also another challenge we need to work on. And so that might require better data layers on layer 2 and maybe layer 3s as well. And maybe eventually we have multiple layers that all roll up into layer 1 and do the verification of the state on layer 1. And I think optimistic rollups and ZK rollups are doing an amazing job at that. And I hope we see much better improvements also in the next 5 years.
So if I had to sum up in one word, like our focus for the next few years, and really I think it encapsulates a lot of the points that the others made, it's really about inclusivity for us at Arbitrum. The lower the fees go, the better the user experience, the more you can include, and then it means inclusivity of users, right? Because maybe here we can afford a certain price sitting in the US, some of us can afford a price for an NFT minting, and that seems reasonable. But there are others that are priced out at that point, and that will always be true. And the lower that we can get our fees and the better that we can get our user experience, we'll be able to include more users, whether that's from a price standpoint, whether it's people that are less technically savvy and don't know how to go and set up their wallet. Like the more layers that we abstract, the better that we make the user experience in a secure way. We're going to include more users and also include more applications. One of the things that excites me most about what's to come is the emergence of new verticals that only become possible when prices go down. So for example, I think we're seeing really, really early, but very, 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 very nascent connections between, say, DeFi and NFTs. But when you lower prices, things like fractionalized NFTs and NFTs lending marketplaces, and hey, things that I can't even imagine are going to become possible. And that's why our job at Arbitrum is relatively simple. Let's make the user experience as good as possible, high security, and get the fees lower. And that's a breeding ground, really, for innovation. And at that point, I don't know what's possible. I can imagine, but there are a lot of people that are much, much smarter than me that are thinking about these issues. And and many times, I've had meetings with people that in gaming, for example, we're seeing an emergence of gaming on the blockchain, and it just doesn't make sense to build a game if you're going to have to pay dollars or tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars or even 50 cents for a gaming transaction. It kind of ruins the game, right? Because the goal of what we're getting is, the early, say, blockchain games were users that really cared about the blockchain and, oh my God, I love Ethereum, and wow, I can play a game. The world we're going to is users who don't know about the blockchain but want to reap its benefits, and oh, I want to play a really, really cool game, and the blockchain should be an implementation detail in the background. And if your wallet's getting drained, it's hard to be in the background. If every time you press a button, there's a 15-second spinner that sort of pops up, or maybe 30 seconds, or 45, or 10, you don't really know. That sort of ruins the user experience. So two of those issues that they're very basic issues. Fast user experience, you want the Web 2 experience, I click a button, and something happens, and the prices are low, but it's inclusivity for people, geographic inclusivity, and also inclusivity for new applications, a new vertical, and really a breeding ground for innovation. And to echo just Walid's point on bridging, I couldn't agree more that I think bridging is really, really important. One of the nice things about rollups, when basically most bridging attacks happen when two blockchains sort of talk to each other because they can't really directly talk to each other. So what a bridge is on a blockchain, it's I lock funds on blockchain A and someone unlocks it on blockchain B. And where bridging attacks happen is equivocation, where somehow the state doesn't align and blockchain A thinks it's locked on blockchain B thinks it's locked on blockchain A, and now, oops, they both release the funds and I just double spend. So the nice thing about layer 2s is that they're much tighter, more tightly coupled to the layer 1. So Arbitrum and Ethereum can talk directly, so you don't have these breakdowns in communication. But I do think users are going to want to go from Ethereum to Arbitrum, but they're also going to want to go to other layer 1s. So figuring this out long term is really, really important. I think that's a really, really, really great point. And lastly, to Kevin's point, over time, rollouts are not in their final form. There's a lot of great innovation. I think Kevin mentioned the IP 4844. So prices seem low today. Arbitrum is about 97% cheaper than Ethereum today, but that's only going to get better over time. And the lower we go at each price point, we'll be able to include more users and more applications.
All right, 10 seconds per panelist for one final point. And I'll go first. The future is on L2. L1 is evolving to become a complement and supporter and settlement layer for L2s, but the future is on L2.
The future is definitely on L2. A key component of any Web3 application is going to include an L2 strategy, a decentralized cloud storage strategy, a decentralized RPC strategy, in leveraging all different components of a Web3 stack to create a great user experience.
The art is the utility. Buy NFTs for the art, support your artists. That's it.
All right. Yeah, I agree. Future is, I think, omni-chain. It's going to be a multiple chain. That's why we're building Omni protocol. It's just going to shell the product. So yeah, please check it out. We're building a great DeFi platform for NFTs. And yeah, I agree. We definitely need more layer 2 solutions and more robust layer 2 solutions that communicate with each other and provide great utility for the next billion people to come.
Totally agree with everything else everyone said. I think the future of NFTs are on layer 2. In particular, if you're an NFT, if you're an artist, a collector, some other builder, and you're looking to build an Arbitrum, please feel free to reach out to me or find me at the conference, and would love to show you an Arbitrum.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.